Krystal, what are you taking a look at?
Well, guys, a UK court has now officially ruled that Julian Assange can be extradited to the United States in order to face Espionage Act charges. Those were brought by the Trump Justice Department, and they have been continued under the Biden Justice Department. Now, originally, a UK court had ruled against extraditing Assange, not because they objected to the outrageous charges against him, but because they worried that the toxic combination of Julian's extreme mental anguish combined with the endemic cruelty of the American prison system created a grave suicide risk. On appeal, the U.S. government, under Joe Biden, offered some fairly meaningless assurances regarding Julian's health, and those reassured the court enough for them to rule that he could, in fact, be extradited. Now, Julian does have a few additional legal options he can pursue. According to his fiancée, they are planning to appeal to the British Supreme Court. If that fails or they are unwilling to take up his case, he could seek a stay of extradition from the European Court of Human Rights. Now, we're about to speak with Julian's brother Gabriel about his health, the charges against him, and the broader implications for press freedom. But I wanted to take a look at how the cowards in the American press are covering all these developments. In particular, take a listen to how all of this was reported on by MSNBC's Joe Scarborough.
Claire McCaskill, there is a lot of smoke surrounding Julian Assange. Of course, there were the charges in Sweden that were subsequently dropped. There is the hacking and his vendetta against Hillary Clinton. There's information that was released that showed military malfeasance by the United States. But, you know, it's so interesting that it used to be the far left who opposed George W. Bush's wars in Afghanistan and Iraq who made this guy a hero under the guise of the First Amendment. And then when he started leaking information against Hillary Clinton, it became the Trump right that suddenly held Julian Assange. But let's just forget the politics of this. As a prosecutor, you're given this case, and you've got a guy who's stolen thousands of documents, pages of highly classified national security documents, released them to the world, and in so doing, put the lives of U.S. troops, of people who were working with the United States, allies, collaborators in war zones, in the gravest of danger. Under any scenario, you take politics out of it. And this is an open and shut case. This is not the Pentagon Papers. This wasn't Times editors rifling through documents, figuring out what could be released and what couldn't be released and explaining it. This was a guy that got stolen documents and gave it to the world.
The amount of propaganda and just sheer lies packed into those few minutes of commentary is as stunning as it is astonishing. Let me lay out this masterwork of deception step by step. So step one, paint Assange as a generally bad guy. It seems kind of perplexing that Scarborough starts his anti-Assange screed by bringing up something totally irrelevant to the conversation, the rape charges against Assange in Sweden, which were discredited and ultimately dropped. But of course, by raising them at the outset, he starts to paint a portrait of a person who is suspect in any number of ways. Same with the irrelevant and unsubstantiated assertion that Assange had a vendetta against Hillary Clinton, which also feeds directly into step two, appeal to the audience's partisan bias. Scarborough asserts that in the beginning, the far left supported Assange and, quote, made him a hero, but now it's the Trump right who admires him. This is not remotely true. Most everyone on the actual left continues to support Assange because the principle of First Amendment protections did not end when the information released stopped being convenient for the Democratic Party. It is true that liberals have further soured on Assange because of the Hillary Clinton revelations, but many liberals already hated Assange from the beginning thanks to their close ties to the military-industrial complex. The Obama administration, they didn't charge Assange, but they hated the guy. They launched a regime of aggressive surveillance against him. As for the Trump right supporting Assange now, it was the Trump Justice Department who decided to charge Assange and even considered kidnapping him or murdering him. In fact, there has been full elite bipartisan consensus about Assange from Obama through Trump and now to Biden. But more to the point, what does it matter how our various political tribes feel about Julian Assange? The only thing that matters is how his case relates to freedom of the press, an issue which, of course, Scarborough scarcely even mentions here. Which brings us to step number 3, wildly lie about what Assange actually did. So in reality, Julian Assange published materials from whistleblower Chelsea Manning which exposed Bush-era war crimes. But in Scarborough's telling, Assange is, quote, a guy who's stolen thousands of documents, pages of highly classified national security documents, and, quote, released them to the world. This is just false. Assange did not hack or steal anything. Even the US government, which has tried to invent every phony and dubious charge against Assange that they possibly could, even they are not arguing that Assange directly stole the documents which were released. Instead, he did what journalists do all the time, which is to publish classified information given to him by a source. In that way, yeah, this case is in fact very much like the Pentagon Papers. Step 4, repeat Pentagon propaganda about how the release of those documents put service members at risk. Now look, when the documents were first released, it was possible that some of what was put out there could have put our people at risk. But as Glenn Greenwald always points out, you know 100% that if even one life was lost or even put at genuine risk thanks to these disclosures, the Pentagon and their disgusting apologists would have shouted it from the rooftops. We would know their names, we would know their stories, we would know exactly how WikiLeaks ultimately harmed them. But over all these many years, they have not come up with a single solitary example. So having thus laid out Joe's case of lies and disinformation, he then pronounces this an open and shut case. And he's right. Anyone with a basic set of principles looking at the actual facts of the case would also find this to be an open and shut case. Just as the Obama administration reluctantly did. You cannot criminalize Assange without also criminalizing journalism. Now, the cherry on top of all of this, which I couldn't even bring myself to show you lest you go into shock from exposure to too many terrible Morning Joe takes, was Claire McCaskill suggesting that the assault on Assange was about preserving the rule of law, when of course what is actually happening here is a direct assault on the Constitution authorized and whitewashed by a bipartisan chorus of elites. All of these people feigned great concern about the First Amendment, about freedom of the press during the Trump administration. Scarborough himself suggested that Trump would, quote, arrest us tomorrow, raising the specter of journalists and publishers, the New York Times and Washington Post behind bars. Well, Trump did arrest a publisher, and in doing so, paved the way to the criminalization of journalism that Scarborough pretended to fear. And instead of standing up for the First Amendment, Scarborough and Claire McCaskill and a lot more besides, they are cheerleading this authoritarian attack. With friends of democracy like these, who needs enemies? There was so much going on in that clip that I couldn't even get to all of it. I love how he refers to... Hey guys, thanks so much for watching.
That's right. Just as a reminder, you can become a premium subscriber today. Watch the full show completely uncut, our reactions to each other's monologues. You get to listen to it, you get to ask us questions, all that good stuff. Link is right there in the description or at breakingpoints.com.
Best of all, great way to say screw you to the mainstream media.